What are these mysterious and stunning shapes etched into the wheat fields of England and other nations around the world? Are these crop circles, as they have come to be known, some sort of communication? Communication, perhaps, from another world? There are scientists who tell us that mathematics is the language of the universe. Could it be that these precise geometric designs are in fact trying to tell us something? Some believe these intricate patterns could be a warning, but warning of what and from whom? We'll attempt to find the answer to these and a host of other questions when we return.
A mystery that cannot be explained. An enigma that defies reason. A surprising and unexpected answer. To encounter such a mystery firsthand may change your life forever. Face to face with the greatest riddles of the ages, the world's most profound mysteries reach out and touch your life in ways you never imagined possible. Extreme Mysteries. Extreme Mysteries.
In the late 1970s, something truly amazing began to happen in the crop-rich countryside of England. Reports of circles being pressed into standing crops began to trickle in from the agricultural areas where much of England's cereal grains are grown. They were just simple circles to begin with, but as the frequency of the reports increased, so did the size and intricacy of the markings in the field. What's more, in spite of the fact that some of these circles were so large they could only be fully viewed from high in the air, they had the disturbing quality of appearing fully formed overnight. Who or what could noiselessly and in the dark cut huge images into a field of living grain without damaging the crop and leave a precise geometric impression only fully visible from an airplane? There were many people who thought that question was being answered by other reports that began coming in at about the same time. Reports of silvery discs flying or hovering low over the open countryside, and apparently these objects were seen in great numbers.
The town of Warminster has gained the reputation as the UFO capital of England. The sheer number of sightings in that area since 1964 has been nothing short of staggering. One particular phenomenon we've been watching with interest has been the sightings of a spherical object that seems to glow amber, orange, or gold. There have been quite a number of sightings of that kind of this object.
But those sightings were often only the beginning of the mystery. According to eyewitness accounts, with the first rays of the next morning's sun came astonishing evidence of the previous night's encounter with the unknown and so far unexplained. Someone or something left an area of the field flattened, pressed down into perfect geometric shapes.
The crops aren't cut, they're not broken. They've been carefully and systematically swirled flat to the ground.
Over the years, these patterns have proven to be more than just random design. They are, in fact, perfect circles, ovals, or circles with rings, and sometimes circles, rings, and satellites. So, we are left with the haunting possibility that if there is a connection between the circular objects and the mysterious imprints left in the fields, these so-called crop circles may be the most positive evidence yet of alien visitors to our planet. But can we be sure the crop circles and UFOs are related?
Almost from the beginning, crop circles have appeared in association with the report of aerial phenomena. In the most extreme cases, people have reported beams of light touching ground level, where crop circles have been later discovered, or indeed in many cases, the little balls of orange light dancing over the field, and on occasions, literally appearing in the fields. These sightings have often been followed by discoveries of the crop circles.
This is, of course, important circumstantial evidence of a connection between the crop markings and the aerial phenomena, but it is only circumstantial. Are there other reasons to believe these symbols in the field were made by UFOs?
The characteristics of the crop circles, the bent stems, and the lack of damage, the idea that they've been produced by some kind of scanner, which we haven't got, which I discovered from my research, and the fact that their timings related to the UFO activity all point to an intelligence which is not human.
I'm convinced that the wisdom and skill and understanding embodied in these formations is of a very high order indeed.
Could it be that the answer will be found in sites like these, where witnesses claim UFOs have landed?
There have been a number of ground traces that have been found both here in Pennsylvania and throughout the world. Some of these traces indicate circular areas, ring-shaped areas, ovals, irregular sites. In some cases, you have the top of the area that's been burnt and charred. In some cases, soil and plant life has been removed.
J. Allen Hynek, the father of modern UFO research, reported witnessing a flying saucer landing site in Canada that was suspiciously like the classic crop circle.
As though on a signal, all 5 of these objects rose straight up, as though on a signal, and where each one had been was a 9-foot circle of matted down grass.
Does this mean that all such strange circles in the grass have been created by a UFO? Or is there another, more likely explanation that would describe all of these phenomena?
The official explanation from the British government is that these crop circles are actually formed by the wind. Well, presumably we are led to believe that this is a rigorous wind system which etches the crop circles into the fields. The British government's whirlwind theory appears to have been accepted by everybody concerned, particularly, I think, the public. But bearing in mind, it in no way fulfills the mechanism which actually forms a whirlwind, i.e. they are formed by thermal inductance and appear during the daylight and or in the lee of a hill. In southern England, we have very few hills, and most of the crop circles appear at night.
Wind, however, is not the only weather factor that has been suggested as a natural cause for the formation of crop circles. The BLT Research Team Incorporated, a group of scientists headquartered in the U.S. but doing research worldwide on this phenomenon, has a slightly different idea.
The most reasonable hypothesis that we've been able to come up with is that an atmospheric plasma, an air mass of highly charged electrical particles, is descending down towards the Earth's surface, and when it impacts in a crop field, what you get is in fact a crop circle. A lightning discharge is another example of a plasma form. The northern lights are another one. Science until recently did not think that plasmas came down as low as the Earth's actual surface, but not too many years ago they discovered sprites, and sprites occur at 6 miles up. So there's more and more evidence that perhaps plasmas can in fact impact the Earth's surface.
So are we to believe that a whirlwind, a wind of any kind, can form a pattern like this? Look at the way the grain is being woven and these precisely well-deformed edges. Well, no whirlwinds did these things, and it's absolute madness to pretend they did.
Natural phenomena cannot explain crop circles because they simply started 20-odd years ago. Mother Nature is not best known for inventing new phenomena.
I don't believe they can all be created through natural phenomena, simply because I've witnessed a number of first-hand anomalies on bits of electrical equipment that wouldn't be caused by just randomly downed crop or shapes. One experience I had a few years ago, I had a mobile phone that I was trying to use in a crop circle, and it completely refused to work at all. And I went to the edge of the crop circle. You know, at the time I thought it had been zapped or something, and I held it like this, and it went up to full signal strength. And I put it back in, and it just went completely no signal. And I repeated this. At the time I was fairly sceptical. I repeated this a number of times and literally went right round the exact shape of the crop circle, and it completely refused to work inside, and yet it worked full signal strength outside the circle. So that was one event that personally convinced me there was something worth investigating.
The sheer number of circles being reported every year has forced many governments to take note of these amazing occurrences. But what have governments, by and large, done to identify the source of the circles? Could it be the entire phenomenon has been the result of clever fakery? And since no one appears to be gaining great fame and fortune for their effort, why would anyone bother to do it?
Extreme mysteries.
No one denies that the artistry and geometric precision of the crop circles are truly amazing. The answer that seems to elude every question is, how on earth can it be done on such a grand scale, in so many different places, and always in a single night? Does this mean that UFOs, piloted by some sort of intelligence, are the only answer? Actually, there are a variety of other theories about where the crop markings come from. One of the most inventive explanations suggests the markings are being made by the satellite-based weapon system developed for the American Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI.
There is a theory that the SDI program, the government themselves, are actually employing high-tech equipment in space to etch into the fields of southern England and other parts of the world patterns of this kind. There are two reasons why I don't believe it's even a starter. We had reports of this phenomena in 1946 in the same field as we have them today. We didn't have the technology up there when they were first appearing. And the second, I think the most major point, is that these patterns could be laid into the fields of secure areas of military establishments. We have large areas in central southern England. It'd be very simple to lay them in those areas. But these are appearing in public areas. Some of them are actually crossing major highways. I cannot begin to conceive of any Western government employing such technology in such an irresponsible manner.
Technology can't possibly explain the existence of crop circles, because while the technology might be available, the social backup to that technology is impossible to conceive. Who would spend fortunes on a technology that bends over the stalks of crop?
There are even those who have put the theory forward that these things are formed by mating hedgehogs or porcupines rolling around in the field.
Are any of these theories any more credible than the suggestion that the crop circles are formed by UFOs or some kind of aerial technology? Of course, all of them overlook a much simpler possibility. Could these patterns just be a matter of an outright hoax? In 1990, two Englishmen came forward with a confession. They had, they told the world, personally created the crop circles. The men, Doug Bauer and David Chorley, were even eager to demonstrate their technique for cameras. Their method was simplicity itself. Put a board under one foot, attached to a rope to hold it against your foot, tie yourself to a center point, and begin walking around in circles. Nothing to it. But if Doug and Dave did do all of the crop circles as they claimed, how did they get from England to America to Russia and back? How did they make as many as 15 circles in one night? How did they overlap the stalks without breaking them? If indeed this is the answer to the origin of the crop circles, how on earth did they do it?
There simply is no way that just two men could have possibly constructed all of these patterns, appearing on occasions 15 per day, without getting caught at it. Hoaxers went out during the middle of the night just to make this. How on earth would they have possibly constructed a pattern like Barbary Castle during the shortest night of the British summer? It would have taken a team of hoaxers days to have constructed this, and it appeared simply overnight.
What people don't realize is that before 1991 and since 1991, that there have been scientists, biophysicists, who have been studying plants from formations in England, Canada, the United States, Australia, and other parts of the world, and have found that there are fundamental biochemical and biophysical changes at the respiratory cell level and the cell pit level of plants that cannot be hoaxed.
Crop circles, like UFOs, are a worldwide phenomenon. The U.S. and Canada, Australia, Japan, they're all over the place. I heard some reports about them in the Soviet Union as well, in the former Soviet Union. They're a worldwide phenomenon, and the idea that two old English barflies are flying all over the world creating these things is patently ridiculous.
And there's another aspect to the circles that suggests, shall we say, more comprehensive planning. Many crop circle experts say that the markings in the fields are perfect geometric figures, often accurate to less than 1/4 of an inch.
The difference between wind damage, hoaxing, and genuine patterns, the wind damage is very obvious. It's just a very random falling of the crop in the fields. There's no particular structure to it. The hoaxing ones very often look absolutely brilliant from the air, but when you put them up on a computer, you can see that the geometry is inaccurate. They just never get it correct. In the genuine ones, the geometry is awesome. They may be 1,000 foot in diameter. It's absolutely flawless. It is hugely accurate.
Yet is it not possible that all of the crop markings really are hoaxes?
In 1993, a crop circle making contest was held, sponsored by the Guardian newspaper, which is a kind of equivalent of Sirius newspaper of the New York Times. It was under the supervision of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, a scientist. And at the end of the day, the 11 contestants, or at least 4 or 5 of them, produced reasonable imitations of crop circles. But what does this prove? If I gave you a $20 bill and convinced you that I had hoaxed it, would you forever refuse to take American currency? Does this invalidate the US economy? I don't think so.
Even if Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley didn't make all of the circles, might not the real culprit be hundreds of hoaxers all over the world?
People that believe crop circles were made by human beings are overlooking some very important features of the crop circles. They are interwoven and intricately laid, not at all the way that they would be crushed to the ground if people stamped them.
Chemical analysis of grain from a field where a crop circle had appeared suggests another change that no human hands could have made.
Crop samples from formations in England, New York State, and Vancouver, British Columbia were subjected to some kind of energy which rapidly heated the plants. Even more puzzling are the soil changes in a large oval shape found August 1st near Beckhampton, England. Analysis by nuclear systems designer Marshall Dudley and Duke University student Michael Carost revealed the presence of 10 unusual and short-lived radionuclides in the samples that are not found in normal plants. These are not naturally occurring radionuclides. They must be synthesized in either cyclotrons or fusion reactors. Dudley and Carost said, finding such isotopes in soil samples from a rural England field is profoundly surprising. There's a complex of energies that are being focused on these plants, and that implies some kind of an advanced technology. If there's an advanced technology being applied to cereal crops worldwide, including rice paddies in Japan, the big question is, whose technology and why?
In 1993, shortly after the Perseid meteor shower, a formation occurred in Wiltshire, England, at a place called Chur Hill. The formation had a glaze or a coating on some of the plants and some of the tiny swirls. What we discovered was that this was absolutely pure iron, and we realized that what we were looking at was a deposit of probably meteoritic dust. Since then, we have begun looking in the soils very aggressively, and we find multiple cases, in fact, the majority of cases, where we have 50 to 100 micron diameter beads. These are tiny little spheres of pure iron deposited inside the crop circles and not outside.
Every plant on Earth has a distinctive energy pattern. And we have looked closely and compared the energy pattern of plants inside the crop circle with those outside as controls in the general area. And this was a non-conventional plant analysis process, but they nonetheless secured a starch crystal from a single plant inside a single crop circle and discovered that looking through a microscope, the lattice structure was very different to anything they had ever seen before.
Most people think that applying science to mysteries will dispel them. In this case, it's making it a better mystery than it was to begin with.
Extreme mysteries.
A Applying science to crop circle research is not attempted by everyone, but in the case of the BLT research team, it is their primary focus.
The way the work is done is that we take many hundreds of samples inside the crop circles and an equal number or slightly less control samples outside. We then compare the two groups of plants to see what we see. What we find are enlarged cell wall pits in the crop circle plants, lengthened nodes, markedly lengthened, sometimes 200 and some % over the control nodes. We find holes blown out at the nodes, which we never see in the standing crop outside. And we also get germination abnormalities.
If the crop markings do form mathematically precise geometric symbols, and if the plants inside have been laid in extremely complex patterns, and the organic structure of the plant has been chemically altered, have we finally found indisputable evidence of some superhuman force at work?
There's definite evidence that there's a very high intelligence behind the crop circles, simply because some of the mathematical shapes and symbols that we're getting in the crops, when you actually analyse them, they're actually starting to give sort of new or continuing science.
For me, the crop circles are an awakening of sorts. They're a reminder that we're part of a higher process in the universe. We're not alone, which also corresponds to a lot of Hopi prophecies, a lot of Aboriginal prophecies, and they're all coinciding at this particular point in time.
I think the message crop circles are giving us is for everyone to think for themselves and come to their own conclusions and investigate things rather than just taking verbatim what they read in textbooks, read in the newspapers or see on television.
We may not yet be sure who the real crop circle makers are, and we may not yet know how or why the crop circles were made. But if there is a secret message in crop circles, we may be very close to decoding that message. Mostly, the experts seem to agree that the message is good. Could it be that this is just the good news we've been waiting for? News we need badly, and just in time?